The pool was still, a mirror of the dying sun. But my heart thundered like a storm. I was 17, shivering in my swimsuit, when Coach Ryan's hand grazed my arm, his voice low, saying, "Stay after practice. Eli, we need to talk." I'd always trusted him. Ryan Kessler, 32, was the kind of coach who could make you believe you'd break records before you even hit the water. He'd turned our small-town Indiana swim team into something fierce, a force that made the state championships feel within reach. But that evening, as the rest of the team filed out of the natatorium, their laughter fading down the tiled halls, I felt a shift. His eyes lingered too long, his touch too deliberate. I stayed because he was coach, because he'd always known what was best for me. But when he pulled me close in the shallow end, the water lapping at our waists, I realized some lines weren't meant to be crossed. I was Eli Harper, a kid from nowhere, with dreams bigger than the cornfields surrounding our town of Fairview. Swimming was my escape, my ticket out. My mom worked double shifts at the diner, and my dad, well, he'd left when I was 6, so it was just us. Coach Ryan saw something in me freshman year, a spark he said could take me to nationals, maybe even the Olympics. He was intense, all sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes, the kind of man who commanded a room without raising his voice. He'd push me harder than anyone, yelling splits from the pool deck, his stopwatch a relentless god. But he also listened when I talked about my fears failing mom, failing myself, failing to escape this town. He made me feel seen. That night, though, the natatorium felt different. The air was thick with chlorine and something unspoken. The team was gone, and it was just us, the pool lights casting long shadows. "You're holding back in your turns," Ryan said, waiting closer, his voice softer than usual. "You're better than that, Eli." I nodded, my throat tight. I thought we'd drill technique, like always. But then his hand found my shoulder, steady and warm, and he stepped closer, too close. "You're not just good," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "You're special." My stomach twisted, a mix of fear and something I couldn't name. I was a kid who'd never been kissed, who'd spent nights wondering why my heart raced around certain boys, why I hid those thoughts even from myself. And here was Ryan, my coach, my mentor, blurring a line I didn't know how to navigate. I pulled back, water sloshing between us. "Coach, 2 should go," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. His face shifted, a flicker of something dark, regret, maybe, or defiance. "Eli, wait," he said, but I was already climbing out, my wet feet slapping the deck as I grabbed my towel. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not because I hated him, but because part of me didn't want to leave. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my chest. Fairview High's swim team practiced 6 days a week, and I'd never skipped, not once. But the thought of facing Ryan made my skin crawl. I told Mom I was sick, faking a cough over her worried glance. "You sure, honey?" she asked. Her hands floured from making biscuits. I nodded, hating the lie. I spent the day in my room, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the pool. Was I overreacting? Had I misread it? Ryan was married. For God, Sake's wife, Sarah, taught English at our school. She was kind, always smiling, oblivious to the way her husband's eyes followed me. Or was she? By afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "You okay? Missed you at practice." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I couldn't type. Instead, I opened my journal, a beat-up notebook I'd kept since freshman year. I wrote one line. What do you do when the person you trust most betrays you? I didn't have an answer. School was a minefield the next day. I avoided the natatorium, taking the long way to chemistry class. But Ryan found me at lunch, sitting alone in the courtyard. Eli, he said, his voice calm but firm, like he was calling a play. We need to clear the air. I froze, my sandwich halfway to my mouth. He sat across from me, too close again, his knee brushing mine under the table. I didn't mean to scare you, he said, his eyes searching mine. I care about you, more than you know. My pulse raced, not just from fear, but from the part of me that wanted to believe him, that craved the attention. I was a gay kid in a town where faggot was slung like a casual insult, where I'd learned to hide who I was. Ryan's words felt like a lifeline and a trap all at once. I have to go, I muttered, standing abruptly. He didn't stop me, but his gaze burned into my back as I walked away. That night, I swam laps in my mind, trying to make sense of it. Was this my fault? Had I given him some signal? I thought of the way I'd looked at him sometimes, admiring his confidence, his strength. Had he seen something I hadn't meant to show? The team noticed my distance. My best friend, Lucas, a lanky backstroker with a crooked grin, cornered me in the locker room. You okay? Man, you've been weird since Monday. I shrugged, tying my shoes too fast. Just tired. I lied. Lucas didn't push, but his frown said he wasn't buying it. I wanted to tell him about Ryan, about the confusion clawing at my butt. The words wouldn't come. Coming out was hard enough in my head. Saying it aloud felt like jumping off a cliff. Practice became a tightrope. I showed up, kept my head down, swam my laps. Ryan acted normal, barking orders, timing our sprints. But I caught his glances, the way his hand lingered when he adjusted my form. Each touch was a question I didn't know how to answer. I started researching online terms like grooming, power dynamics. The words made my stomach churn. Ryan wasn't some predator. Was he? He was Coach, the guy who'd stayed late to help me perfect my butterfly, who'd driven me home when Mom's car broke down. But the line he'd crossed wasn't imaginary, and I couldn't unfeel it. A week later, at a meet in Indianapolis, I hit a personal best in the 200-meter freestyle. The crowd roared, but Ryan's voice cut through. That's my boy. His pride felt like a weight. After, in the locker room, he pulled me aside, his hand on my neck, thumb brushing my jaw. You're unstoppable, Eli, he whispered. My teammates were feet away, but it felt like we were alone. I wanted to scream, to shove him, to thank him. Instead, I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep dodging this. I had to confront him, not just for me, but for the kid I'd been, the one who trusted too easily. I didn't know how, but I knew it started with admitting who I was, to myself and maybe to someone else. The truth was a current, pulling me under, but I was a swimmer. I'd learned to fight the undertow. The truth was a weight I carried to practice every day, heavier than my swim bag. I decided to confront Ryan, but the how and when gnawed at me. Fairview's natatorium, with its familiar hum of filters and echo of splashes, felt like a cage now, not a sanctuary. I started small, testing the waters with Lucas. We were sprawled on the bleachers after practice, towels around our necks, the air thick with chlorine. You ever feel like someone's not who you thought? I asked, staring at the pool's surface. Lucas raised an eyebrow, his usual grin absent. Like who? He pressed. I hesitated. The word stuck like a bad start off the block. Just people. I mumbled. He didn't push, but his silence said he was waiting for more. I wanted to tell him everything about Ryan, about the part of me I'd kept locked away, but fear clamped my mouth shut. What if Lucas, my best friend since 6th grade, turned away? Fairview wasn't kind to guys like me. That night, I wrote in my journal, I'm gay. I'm gay. And I'm scared. Seeing it in ink made it real, but also made me feel like I was drowning. I'd grown up hearing slurs in the halls, seeing kids ostracized for less. My mom loved me, but she was devout, her Bible worn from nightly readings. Would she still see me as her son? And Ryan, had he sensed this part of me? Was that why he'd crossed that line? The question swirled, keeping me up until dawn. At school, I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Ryan's wife, Sarah, lingered in the halls, her smile tight when she saw me. Did she know something? I avoided her class, taking detours to the library. But Ryan was inescapable. He'd call me out during practice, his voice sharp. Eli, tighten your streamline. His corrections felt personal now, like a code I couldn't crack. My times were slipping. My focus shot. Lucas noticed, pulling me aside after a bad set. Dude, you're swimming like you're fighting the water. What's up? I shrugged, but his concern cracked something in me. I needed an ally. That Friday, I stayed late at the community center, where the team sometimes hung out. Lucas was there, shooting pool with some guys. I caught his eye, nodding toward the empty lounge. Can we talk? I asked, my voice low. He followed. No questions. We sat on a sagging couch, the hum of a vending machine filling the silence. I'm gay, I blurted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. My hands shook, waiting for his reaction. Lucas leaned back, exhaling. Okay, he said simply. You're still Eli. My best friend doesn't change because of who you like. Relief hit me like a wave, but it was bittersweet. I told him about Ryan, everything. The pool, the touches, the words that felt like a hook in my chest. Lucas's face darkened. That's not okay. Eli. He's your coach. He's got no right. His anger steadied me, like a hand pulling me to the surface. Lucas pushed me to tell someone, an adult. A counselor. But who? Fairview was small. Rumors spread like wildfire. If I accused Ryan, it'd be my word against his. A kid against a respected coach. And what if I was wrong? What if I'd misread his intentions? Doubt gnawed at me, but Lucas was adamant. You're not alone in this, he said. I've got your back. His words were a lifeline, but I wasn't ready to pull it yet. The next week, practice was torture. Ryan's behavior hadn't changed, was still the same commanding presence. But now I saw the cracks. The way he stood too close when adjusting my goggles. The way his voice softened when he said my name. I started documenting it in my journal. Every incident. Every feeling. It was my armor. Proof I wasn't imagining things. But it also made me question myself more. Was I blowing this out of proportion? Was this just how coaches wear hands-on? Intense. I searched online forums, reading stories of athletes and coaches. Boundaries blurred by trust. The word grooming kept coming up, cold and sharp, cutting through my excuses. At a dual meet against a rival school, I saw another side of Ryan. He was charming, shaking hands with parents, joking with officials. But when he pulled me aside before my race, his hand on my lower back, I flinched. "You've got this, Eli," he said, his voice low, intimate. I nodded, my jaw tight, and dove into the pool like I was escaping. I swam hard, channeling every ounce of confusion and anger into my strokes. I won, but the victory felt hollow. Ryan's clap on my shoulder afterward was too heavy, his smile too knowing. That night, I called Lucas. "I need to do something," I said, my voice shaking. "But I don't know how." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Start with someone you trust." "Not Ryan. Someone who'll listen." I thought of MS. Carter, the school counselor. She was young, new to Fairview, with a reputation for being kind but firm. Maybe she'd believe me. Maybe she'd know what to do. The next day, I skipped practice again. My first real act of defiance. I went to the library instead, researching how to report inappropriate behavior. The school's handbook was vague, talking about misconduct and grievances in dry terms. But one line stuck out: all students have the right to a safe environment. Was I safe? I didn't feel it. I wrote another journal entry. I'm not just scared for me. What if he does this to someone else? The thought was a spark, igniting something fiercer than fear responsibility. I made an appointment with MS. Carter for Monday. My stomach churned all weekend, imagining the conversation. Would she believe me? Would she think I was making it up for attention? I rehearsed what I'd say, pacing my room, my journal open on my desk. Lucas texted me Sunday night, "You're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you." His words were a small anchor, keeping me from drifting into panic. Monday morning, I walked into MS. Carter's office, my journal clutched like a shield. She smiled, her eyes warm but curious. "Eli, what's on your mind?" she asked. I took a deep breath, the words I'd rehearsed spilling out. I told her about Ryan, the pool, the touches, the words that felt wrong. I told her I was gay, my voice breaking on the word. I told her I was scared off Ryan, of what this meant, of what came next. She listened, her face calm but serious, taking notes. When I finished, she leaned forward. "Eli, thank you for telling me. You're not alone, and we're going to figure this out together." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. MS. Carter's office felt like a safe harbor, but the storm wasn't over. She promised to escalate my concerns to the principal, Mr. Daniels, and the district's HR department. "This is serious, Eli," she said, her voice steady. "We'll handle it carefully, but we need to act." I nodded, my hands still gripping my journal, its pages now a map of my courage and fear. Leaving her office, I felt lighter but exposed, like I'd just dived into uncharted waters. Word travels fast in Fairview. By lunch, whispers followed me in the halls. Someone had seen me leave the counselor's office, and the rumor mill churned. "Eli's in trouble," I overheard a sophomore say. I kept my head down, avoiding eye contact. Lucas found me in the cafeteria, his tray clattering as he sat. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. I shrugged, picking at my food. "They're talking," I said. He frowned. "Let them. You did the right thing." His support was a lifeline, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That afternoon, Ryan wasn't at practice. The assistant coach, Mr. Tate, ran drills, his gruff voice a poor substitute for Ryan's commanding presence. My teammates noticed, exchanging glances. "Where's Coach?" someone asked. Tate shrugged. "Personal day." My stomach twisted. Was this because of me? Had MS. Carter already spoken to him? I swam mechanically, my strokes off, my mind racing. After practice, Lucas lingered. "You think he knows?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. That night, Mom noticed my silence at dinner. "Eli, you're quiet," she said, setting down her fork. "Everything okay?" I wanted to tell her about Ryan, about being gay, but the words caught in my throat. She'd always been my rock, but her faith loomed large, a shadow I wasn't ready to face. "Just tired," I said, forcing a smile. She didn't push, but her eyes lingered, worried. The next day, Mr. Daniels called me to his office. MS. Carter was there, along with a woman from HR. MS. Rivera. They were kind but direct. "Eli, we've spoken to Coach Kessler," MS. Rivera said. "He's been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation." My heart stopped. Leave. Investigation. It was real now. No turning back. They asked for details, cross-referencing my journal entries. I handed it over, pages trembling in my hands. "You're brave for coming forward," Mr. Daniels said, but his words felt distant. Brave didn't cover the dread pooling in my gut. Rumors exploded by Wednesday. Kids whispered that Ryan had been fired, that he'd done something creepy. My name wasn't out, but it didn't need to be. I was the kid who'd been close to Coach, the one he'd favored. Eyes followed me in the halls, on the pool deck. Lucas stuck close, glaring at anyone who stared too long. But even he couldn't shield me from Sarah Kessler. She cornered me after English class, her face pale, eyes red-rimmed. "Eli, is it true?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Did you say something about Ryan?" I froze, guilt crashing over me. She wasn't angry, she was broken. Two had to. I stammered. She nodded, tears spilling, and walked away. I felt like I drowned her. 2. Practice was a ghost town without Ryan. Tate tried to keep us focused, but the team was fractured. Some guys blamed me, their glares sharp as blades. Others, like Lucas, rallied around me, but it didn't erase the tension. My times got worse, my body betraying me as my mind churned. I started skipping practice, claiming injuries. Mom noticed, her worry deepening. "Eli, talk to me," she pleaded one night. I almost broke, but fear held me back. Not yet. The investigation dragged on. MS. Rivera called me in again, asking more questions. "Did Coach Kessler ever touch you inappropriately outside of practice?" she asked. I shook my head, but the pool incident burned in my memory. They interviewed other teammates, looking for patterns. Lucas told me he'd been asked if Ryan ever acted weird. He'd said no, but admitted he'd seen Ryan linger around me too long. I should have said something sooner, he muttered, guilt in his eyes. I shook my head. This isn't on you. At home, I hid in my room, my journal now a chronicle of the fallout. I wrote about Sarah's tears, the team's division, my own confusion. I wrote about being gay, about the shame and pride warring inside me. I started researching online, finding stories of other athletes who'd faced similar situations. Some spoke out and were believed. Others were shunned. The fear of being the latter kept me up at night. By the end of the week, a new rumor surfaced. Ryan was fighting the allegations, claiming I'd misunderstood his mentorship. The word stung. Mentorship didn't feel like a hand on my neck, a whisper too close. I wanted to scream my truth, but who would listen? Fairview loved Ryan. He was their golden coach, their ticket to state titles. I was just a kid, maybe a liar in their eyes. Lucas pushed me to keep going. "You're not just doing this for you," he said one night, sitting on my bedroom floor. "What if he tries this with someone else? You're stopping that." His words lit a fire in me, small but steady. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I thought of younger swimmers, kids who'd look up to Ryan like I had. I couldn't let them face what I did. On Friday, Ms. Carter called me in again. "The investigation's moving forward," she said. "We found some concerning patterns in Coach Kessler's behavior with other students." My heart raced. Others. I wasn't alone. Relief and horror mixed. A strange tide pulling me under. She wouldn't share details, citing confidentiality, but her words gave me hope. Maybe I'd be believed. Maybe this wouldn't destroy me. That night, I sat with my journal, pen hovering. I wrote, "I'm not just a swimmer. I'm a fighter. And I'm not done yet." The words felt like a vow, one I'd keep no matter what came next. I didn't know how the investigation would end, but I knew I'd face it head on, like a race I couldn't afford to lose. The investigation hung over Fairview like a storm cloud, dark and heavy. I felt it in the stares at school, the hushed conversations that stopped when I passed. I'd become the eye of a hurricane I hadn't meant to start. Ms. Carter kept me updated, her voice a calm anchor. "We're interviewing more people," she said one afternoon. "You're not the only one who's come forward." The words hit hard. Others had stories, too. I wanted to know who, what they'd said, but confidentiality kept those answers out of reach. Instead, I clung to the idea that I wasn't alone, that my truth was part of a bigger one. But it didn't make the days easier. The team was splintering, some siding with Ryan, others unsure. Lucas stayed loyal, but even he couldn't stop the whispers. "Eli's lying," I heard a senior mutter in the locker room. "He's just mad coach pushed him too hard." The words cut, but I kept swimming, my strokes a defiance against their doubt. Mom's worry grew. She caught me staring out the window one night, my dinner untouched. "Eli, what's going on?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. I wanted to tell her everything, but the fear of her rejection of her faith outweighing her love kept me silent. "School stuff," I said, hating the lie. She frowned but didn't push, her hand squeezing mine before she cleared the table. I felt like I was betraying her, too. At school, Sarah Kessler's absence was noticeable. She'd taken a leave, rumors said, and her substitute droned through English class. I wondered what she knew, what Ryan had told her. Did she believe him? Hate me? The guilt gnawed at me. But Lucas's words echoed, "This isn't on you." I held on to that, writing it in my journal like a mantra. The investigation intensified. Ms. Rivera called me in again, this time with a police officer, Officer Hayes, who specialized in school cases. His presence made it real in a new way. Ryan could face legal consequences. They asked more questions, digging into every detail of that night in the pool. I recounted it all, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. Officer Hayes was kind but thorough, asking about other incidents. Other swimmers. We're building a case. He said, your statement is crucial. Crucial. The word felt too big for a kid like me. Practice was a shadow of itself. Tate tried, but without Ryan's fire. The team floundered. My times were inconsistent. My focus split between the pool and the investigation. Lucas noticed, pulling me aside after a bad set. You're carrying too much, he said. Let me help. I shook my head. Stubborn. I've got this. But I didn't. I was drowning in doubt, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd ruined Ryan's life or my own. Then came a breakthrough. MS. Carter called me in after school. Another student corroborated your story, she said. A former swimmer. Graduated last year. My heart leapt. Someone else had seen Ryan's behavior, had felt that same unease. Who? I asked, but she shook her head. It's confidential, but it strengthens your case. Case. The word made it sound like a courtroom drama. Not my life. But it gave me hope. A flicker of light in the fog. That night, I finally told Mom. We were in the kitchen, her hands busy with dishes. Mom, I need to tell you something. I started, my voice barely audible. She turned, drying her hands, her eyes searching mine. I took a breath and let it out. I was gay. I told her about Ryan, the pool, the investigation. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered. When I finished, silence hung heavy. Then she crossed the room and pulled me into a hug, her arms fierce. Eli, you're my son, she said, her voice thick. Nothing changes that. And no one gets to hurt you. Tears stung my eyes, relief flooding me. She didn't fully understand not yet, but her love was a lifeline. The next day, I swam with a new fire. My strokes were sharp, my turns tight. Lucas noticed, grinning. There's the Eli I know. I didn't tell him about Mom, but his words fueled me. I wasn't just swimming for myself anymore, I was swimming for the truth. For the others who'd come forward. For the kid I'd been before Ryan blurred the lines. But the storm wasn't over. At a team meeting, Tate announced Ryan's leave was extended. Maybe permanent. The room erupted. Some guys shouting about unfairness. Others silent. I kept my head down. But their anger felt personal. After, a junior named Matt cornered me. This is your fault. Harper. He spat. Coach was the best thing we had. Lucas stepped in, his voice low but firm. Back off. Matt. You don't know the whole story. Matt stormed off, but his words lingered. A reminder of the cost of speaking up. I started seeing a therapist, recommended by MS. Carter. Dr. Ellis was calm, with a knack for asking questions that cut through my walls. How does it feel to carry this? She asked in our first session. I didn't have an answer, but her office became a place to unpack the guilt, the fear, the shame of being gay in a town like Fairview. She helped me see Ryan's actions for what they were, a betrayal of trust. Not my fault. It was slow, but it was progress. By the end of the month, the investigation was wrapping up. MS. Rivera hinted at a resolution soon, but didn't share details. I wrote in my journal, I'm scared of what's next, but I'm not backing down. Lucas was right, I wasn't just fighting for me. I was fighting for every kid who'd felt that uneasy touch, that too close whisper. I was fighting for the truth, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The resolution came faster than I expected. A tidal wave crashing over Fairview. MS. Rivera called me to the district office one gray morning. Her face unreadable. Coach Kessler has been terminated, she said. The investigation found multiple accounts of inappropriate conduct. My breath caught. Terminated. It was real. Final. Ryan was gone. But the victory felt hollow, tinged with grief for the coach I'd once idolized. Word spread like wildfire. By lunch, the school was buzzing. Some kids cheered. Others mourned. He didn't deserve this, a sophomore muttered in the hall. I kept my head down, but the weight of their words pressed on me. Lucas found me in the library, his face grim. You here? He asked. I nodded. You okay? I shrugged, unable to name the mix of relief and guilt churning inside. It's over, right? I said. He shook his head. Not yet. People are going to talk. He was right. The team was a mess, split between those who believed me and those who didn't. Practice was tense, Tate struggling to hold us together. My times were still off. My focus fractured. I swam to escape, but the pool felt tainted now, a place where trust had been broken. Lucas stayed close, his presence a quiet strength. You're tougher than this, he said after a bad practice. Don't let them win. His words pushed me to keep going, to reclaim the water as mine. Mom became my rock. After our talk, she started asking questions about being gay, about what Ryan had done. She didn't always understand, but she listened, her love fierce and unwavering. One night, she sat me down. I talked to Pastor John, she said, and my heart sank. He said love is love. Eli, God doesn't make mistakes. Her words broke something open in me, a dam of fear I'd held back for years. I cried, and she held me, her faith bending to fit her love for me. The community wasn't as kind. Fairview's small-town heart loved its heroes, and Ryan had been one. At a diner shift, Mom overheard customers gossiping, calling me a liar, a troublemaker. She came home furious, vowing to stand by me. They don't know you, she said. But I do. Her support gave me courage, but the town's judgment stung. I avoided Main Street, the hardware store, anywhere eyes might follow. Dr. Ellis helped me navigate the fallout. You're grieving, she said in a session. Not just for what happened, but for who you thought Ryan was. She was right. I'd worshipped him, built him up as a mentor, a savior. Letting that go hurt as much as his betrayal. She gave me tools, breathing exercises, journaling prompts to manage the anxiety that spiked when I saw Ryan's name in a text or heard it in the halls. The team faced a new challenge. The state championships were weeks away, and we were unraveling. Tate called a meeting, his voice gruff. We're a team, he said. We rise together or we fall. But the divide was clear. Half the guys avoided me. The other half, led by Lucas, stood by me. I wanted to quit, to walk away from the pool and its ghosts. But swimming was part of me, woven into my bones. I couldn't let Ryan take that, too. I started training harder, channeling my anger into my strokes. Lucas noticed, grinning after a practice where I beat my own record. There's my boy, he said, echoing Ryan's words, but without the weight. I smiled. A real one. For the first time in weeks. The pool was becoming mine again. A place to fight, not hide. Then came a letter. It was slipped into my locker and signed, in neat handwriting. You're not alone. I was scared to speak up, but you gave me courage. Thank you. My heart raced. Another swimmer. A teammate. I showed it to MS. Carter, who nodded. You started something. Eli. Your voice matters. The letter became my talisman, tucked into my journal, a reminder that my fight wasn't just for me. At home, I opened up to Mom more. I told her about the letter, about the others who'd come forward. She listened, her eyes fierce with pride. You're changing things. Eli, she said. That's not small. Her words fueled me, pushing me to face the team, the town, the truth. I wasn't just a victim, I was a fighter, reshaping the world in my small corner of it. The state championships loomed, a test of more than my swimming. I knew Ryan's absence would hang over us, a shadow we couldn't shake. But I also knew I had to swim not for him, not for Fairview, but for myself. I wrote in my journal, the water doesn't judge. It just carries you if you let it. I was ready to let it carry me, to fight for my place in the pool and in the world. The race was coming, and I wasn't backing down. The state championships were a week away, and Fairview's swim team was a fractured machine, gears grinding but not meshing. I threw myself into training, my strokes a rebellion against the chaos. The pool was my refuge again, its rhythm steadying my pulse. Lucas was my shadow, pushing me through grueling sets. You're gonna kill it, he said after I nailed a sprint, his grin infectious. But the team's divide was stark. Matt and his crew kept their distance, their glares sharp. Others, like a quiet freshman named Jake, started warming to me, offering small nods of respect. The letter in my locker had sparked hope. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Still, I felt the weight of Ryan's absence, a ghost haunting every lap. Mom became my biggest cheerleader. She started coming to practices, sitting in the bleachers with a thermos of coffee, her presence a quiet strength. You're more than this town, she told me one night, her voice fierce. Don't let them define you. Her words echoed Dr. Ellis's, who'd been helping me untangle my guilt. You didn't cause this, Dr. Ellis said in a session. Ryan's choices did. I was starting to believe her, but it was a slow climb. The investigation's fallout lingered. MS. Carter told me the district was reviewing its policies, prompted by my case and the others. You've made them look at themselves, she said. It felt good, but also heavy. I hadn't asked to be a catalyst. At school, rumors twisted. Some said Ryan had left town, others that he was suing the district. I avoided the gossip, focusing on my training. The pool was my truth now, not the whispers. Then came a surprise. Jake, the freshman, approached me after practice, his voice low. I saw what Coach did, he said, eyes darting. Not to me, but I heard things. I should have said something. My heart raced. Another voice, another piece of the puzzle. I thanked him, my voice thick, and told MS. Carter. She nodded, adding his statement to the file. This helps, she said. It's not just your word anymore. Jake's courage mirrored mine, a ripple from my leap. The night before the championships, Mom cooked my favorite lasagna and we talked. Really talked. I told her about my fears, about wanting to love without hiding. She listened, her eyes soft. I'm learning, Eli, she said. I want you to be happy, whoever you love. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. I went to bed with a new strength. My journal opened to a single line. I swim for me now. The championships were in Indianapolis. A gleaming natatorium packed with screaming fans. Fairview's team was an underdog, but I felt a fire I hadn't in months. Lucas was in the lane next to me for the 200-meter freestyle. His grin a challenge. Beat me, Harper, he teased. I laughed. The sound foreign, but welcome. The buzzer sounded, and I dove, the water embracing me. My strokes were sharp, my turns precise. I didn't think about Ryan, or the team, or Fairview's judgment. I swam for the kid who'd dreamed of this moment, who'd fought to be here. I touched the wall first. A personal best. The crowd roared. Lucas pounding my shoulder. You're a beast, he shouted. I grinned, breathless, scanning the stands for Mom. She was there, clapping, tears in her eyes. For a moment, it was just Usher pride. My victory. But the relay was next, and the team's tension resurfaced. Matt glared as we lined up, his silence louder than words. We swam well, but didn't place. The divide costing us. Still, I held my head high. I'd reclaimed the pool. Back in Fairview, the town was quieter. Ryan's name faded from conversations, replaced by talk of the championships. Some still blamed me, but others like Jake. Like Lucas saw me differently. I started opening up, telling a few teammates I was gay. Most shrugged. Some hugged me. You're still Eli, Jake said, echoing Lucas. It wasn't acceptance from everyone, but it was a start. Dr. Ellis helped me process the win, not just in the pool, but in myself. You're rewriting your story, she said. I was. I wrote in my journal, I'm not just a swimmer. I'm a survivor. And I'm proud. The words felt true. An anchor in the current of my life. The season ended. But my fight didn't. Ms. Carter told me the district was implementing new training for coaches. A direct result of my case. It wasn't justice. Not fully. Ryan faced no charges. The evidence too murky, but it was change. I'd made a difference. For Jake. For others I'd never know. I was ready for what came next. In and out of the pool. The off-season brought a strange calm. Like the stillness after a storm. Fairview's natatorium was quiet. The pool covered. But I still went there sometimes. Sitting on the bleachers to think. The water had been my battleground. And now it was my peace. I leaned on Mom and Lucas. My anchors. Mom started asking about my future college. Scholarships. Maybe a life beyond Fairview. You've got wings, Eli, she said one night. Her voice warm. Use them. I'd been accepted to a few schools with swim programs, and the thought of leaving felt like a fresh start. But it also scared me. Fairview was all I'd known. Its judgment and its love. Could I be myself somewhere else? Lucas was planning to study engineering nearby, and we made a pact to stay close. You're not getting rid of me, he joked, tossing a towel at me after a pickup swim. His support never wavered, even when others pulled away. Matt and his crew still avoided me. Their loyalty to Ryan a wall I couldn't break. But Jake and a few others started sitting with me at lunch. Their quiet acceptance a balm. You're all right, Harper, Jake said one day, a shy smile breaking through. It was small, but it mattered. Dr. Ellis pushed me to explore who I was beyond the pool, beyond the scandal. What makes Eli? Eli, she asked. I didn't have a full answer, but I started trying new things, joining the school's art club, sketching the pool in my journal. The lines and curves of the water felt like a metaphor for my life, fluid, unpredictable, but mine to shape. I drew Ryan once, his face half-shadowed, and tore it out. He didn't get to define me anymore. The district's new policies were a quiet victory. Ms. Carter told me coaches now had mandatory training on boundaries. A direct result of my case. You've changed things, Eli, she said. That's power. I didn't feel powerful, but I felt proud. Jake's confession had helped, and I wondered how many others were out there, silent but watching. I kept the anonymous letter in my journal, a reminder of the ripples I'd started. Mom and I talked more about my being gay. She admitted it was hard, her faith wrestling with her love. But she was trying, reading books, talking to Pastor John. I want you to be happy, she said, her eyes earnest. I told her about a guy in art club, Sam, whose shy smile made my heart race. She listened, didn't flinch, and asked, "Is he kind?" I nodded, and she smiled. That's what matters. It was a step, not a leap, but it was enough. Sam became a new light. We worked on a mural together, painting a wave that curled across the school's courtyard wall. He was quiet, with a sharp wit, and didn't care about Fairview's gossip. One day, as we cleaned brushes, he asked, "You ever feel like you're more than this town?" I laughed, surprised. All the time. We started hanging out, just talking at first, then more. My first crush felt like a secret I could finally keep without shame. The team was rebuilding. Tate was named head coach, and he pulled me aside one day. "You're a leader, Eli," he said. "Help me fix this team." I wasn't sure I could, but I tried. I organized extra practices, focusing on teamwork. Lucas backed me, and Jake joined in, his quiet strength growing. Matt stayed distant, but I didn't push. Healing takes time, and I was learning that myself. I wrote in my journal, "I'm not just surviving. I'm building something new." The words felt like a promise. I was finding my voice, not just in the pool, but in the world. Sam, Lucas, Mom, even Jake, they were my team now. Not just in swimming, but in life. As spring turned to summer, I started training for the next season. My times were improving, my focus sharper. I swam for myself, for the joy of it, not for Ryan's approval or Fairview's pride. The pool was mine again, a place of strength, not betrayal. I thought about the others who'd come forward, the ones I'd never meet. My fight had given them a voice, and that was enough. One evening, Sam and I sat by the pool, the water still under the stars. "You're brave," he said, his hand brushing mine. I smiled, my heart full. "I'm just me," I said. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Summer in Fairview was a golden haze, the air thick with heat and possibility. I stood on the edge of the pool, my toes curling over the diving board, ready to leap into the next chapter of my life. The water below shimmered, a mirror of the strength I'd found within myself. I was 18 now, a senior, my future stretching beyond Fairview's borders. I'd chosen a college in California with a strong swim program and an art department that excited me. The scholarship was partial, but Mom and I were making it work. Her diner shifts and my lifeguard gig piecing together the dream. "You're going places, Eli," she said at breakfast, her smile proud. I believed her now, not because of Ryan's promises, but because I'd fought for it. The team was healing, slowly. Tate's leadership was steady, Less flashy than Ryan's, but honest. Lucas and I were co-captains. A role I hadn't expected but embraced. We ran practices with a focus on unity, pulling Jake and others into the fold. Matt came around. His apology gruff, but sincere. "I was wrong about you," he said one day, eyes down. I nodded, letting the past sink. We weren't friends, but we were teammates, and that was enough. Sam was my anchor in a different way. We'd started dating, quietly at first, testing the waters. He'd paint while I swam, his sketches capturing the motion I loved. One night, he showed me a drawing of me mid-dive, my body a curve of determination. "This is you," he said, his voice soft, always moving forward. I kissed him then, my first real kiss, under the stars by the community center. It felt like freedom, like a truth I could finally claim. Mom met Sam at a team barbecue, her smile cautious but warm. "He's kind," she said later, echoing her own measure of worth. She was still learning, still grappling with her faith, but her love was unwavering. Pastor John invited me to speak at a youth group about courage, and I did, sharing my story without naming Ryan. The kids listened, some nodding, others wide-eyed. I saw a spark in a few, like they'd found permission to be themselves. It was small, but it mattered. Dr. Ellis and I wrapped up our sessions, my toolbox of coping skills now full. "You've grown," she said, her smile genuine. "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." I felt it. My journal was no longer a place of pain, but of possibility, filled with sketches, dreams, and plans. I wrote, "I'm Eli Harper, swimmer, artist, gay, and proud. I'm enough." The district's changes were my quiet legacy. New coaches were trained, boundaries clarified. Ms. Carter told me a neighboring school had adopted similar policies, inspired by Fairview's reckoning. I thought of the anonymous letter, of Jake, of the others I'd never know. My voice had rippled, reshaping the world in ways I couldn't see but could feel. On my last day in Fairview before college, I swam one final lap in the natatorium. Lucas was there, timing me for old time's sake. "You're ready," he said as I climbed out, water dripping. I grinned, knowing he meant more than the pool. Mom waited outside, her car packed with my boxes. Sam was there, too, his hand in mine as we said goodbye to Lucas. "Don't be a stranger," Lucas said, pulling me into a hug. I wouldn't be. Fairview was my route, but I was ready to grow. In California, I'd find new waters, literal and figurative. I'd swim, paint, love, and live without hiding. Ryan's shadow was gone, replaced by the light of my own strength. I'd crossed a line, not the one he'd blurred, but one I'd drawn for myself, a line of courage, of truth, of pride. As I dove into my future, I carried the lessons of Fairview, not just the pain, but the love, the fight, the victory. The water welcomed me, as it always had, and I swam forward, free,